Greetings, all, and so we're going to do a little bit of a news of the day kind of thing around the entertainment world and everything. As we got through another couple episodes, my wife and I got through another couple episodes of Lucifer. We're now 4 episodes into season 3, so we're powering through it. But keep in mind, when we binge watch, we don't have time to watch more than a couple a day, so we're going to take a while to get caught up. Now in the news today, and it's sad news, and I'm going to throw this out there first. Jerry Stiller passed away today. Really, like Jerry Stiller, you may remember him as George Costanza's dad. You may remember him from King of Queens as well. It's the dad down in the basement and all the screaming he did, and really funny man. And that's enough. 2020, that's enough. It's enough, and knock it off. The year 2020 needs to just go away because it needs to stop. Now, he was 92 years of age, so he lived a long life. But 2020 needs to knock it off. Now. Now. Now, other news in and around the entertainment world. Amazon may buy AMC movie theaters. It makes some sense. So, one thing that we're seeing right now is that the economy's kind of not great. And of course, we're seeing sports leagues having problems, and certain owners of sports teams might be trying to get out. And you might see people trying to buy right now. People looking to have money and going, this is a really good time to buy because eventually things are going to come back. So Amazon may look to buy AMC movie theaters, which of course makes things kind of interesting. Might you see Amazon Prime have some kind of a deal where you go to an AMC theater and then, hey, you get this early on Amazon Prime, something along those lines. We see it with Cineplex around here, where you can pay a little bit extra on your ticket, and again, maybe Amazon will have some kind of a gift card thing in between the two if they buy them. Lord knows Jeff Bezos has a ton of money, so if he just decides he wants to buy the theaters, I would imagine this would be a good time to buy it. It'll be cheap. They're near bankruptcy, so it's not like he needs to spend a lot. They were having financial trouble before everything got shut down, so now's a good time to get in. Good news if you're a Disney Plus subscriber, Mandalorian Season 2. Apparently there's no delays. It's in post-editing and all the post-production, so we're good. So that's on its way. One thing I've been concerned with is that while on the main channel I talk about hockey and how we're having disruptions around the hockey world, entertainment's going to be a problem too, where movies aren't getting made, TV shows aren't getting made, movie theaters aren't putting them in there either, and eventually TV's just going to be back to test patterns. If you've seen enough zombie movies, eventually you get to the point where there's nothing on television. I'd rather not get to that point in the apocalypse. So here's to hoping that Mandalorian Season 2 isn't the only one that's got some stuff coming up, apparently with Lucifer Season 5. Apparently it's just the season finale they haven't got finished out yet. Everything else is done. Of course, I've mentioned in previous videos that The Flash, their season has been rushed, where they've had to cut a few episodes out. Of course, I'm wearing my Rick and Morty Pickle Rick jersey. And they really... Animation, I don't know if that gets affected a whole lot. I would think it would slow things down a little bit, but Rick and Morty, it takes them forever to do a season anyways, so does it really have an effect? So yeah, and then good news as well, Bob's Burgers got renewed. Let me go ahead and put the right letter up there. So yeah, Bob's Burgers got renewed. That's 11 seasons for them. I'm behind on it. I know there's at least 2 years that I haven't really been watching it, because again, once the Hockey Channel went crazy, I didn't have time to watch it like I did before. Really funny show. Bob's Burgers is, to me, it's a really funny show. I get a real kick out of it. I remember when it first came on TV, I was kind of like on the fence about it. I didn't think it was that funny. And then it just really took off. And of course, one of the greatest episodes of Archer is the one where he has amnesia and he becomes Bob and he's got the wife and the kids. And when he gets his memory back with Lana, it's absolutely hilarious. But the crossover there was great. And there's been some pretty good crossovers on the show in general. And yeah, Bob's Burgers is a good show. And it's still H. John Benjamin doing the voice, so it works. Where he's both Archer and he's Bob. And they couldn't be more different characters. You could not have two more different people with the exact same voice. It's so weird. And then once you've heard him as Archer, you can't watch Bob's Burgers and not think, why isn't Archer swearing here? Why isn't he saying some of the things he should say? So yeah, I'm glad to see it sticking around. And again, animated shows, I would think, even in this time. Well, you don't have a set, so it's animators you have to worry about, and there's other things you have to worry about, but it's not like people can't do the voice acting remotely as well. So for animation, this might be a good time where they're able to actually make this work, especially TV animation where you don't have to worry about theatrical releases, right? Mulan apparently still set for a July release, but where? That's the question I have. So we're already into May. I know, if you don't have a calendar, you have no idea, because everything just every day kind of feels exactly the same right now. The idea that the theaters could be open in 2 months, I don't see it locally here, but I guess it'll depend on where in the world they might have it. And since Mulan has that Asian flair to the title, to the storyline, you may very, very well be able to debut this in China, in that part of the world, and then release it in the rest of the world later. It'll hurt the box office overall, but box office is going to get hurt anyways. Now, on the cinema note, the UK, they've announced their cinemas will be closed until at least July 4th. That's the earliest they might open, would be July 4th. They haven't said here, where I am in BC, they haven't really said, but I would think that'd be a phase 3 part, and we're still in phase 1. Phase 2 may very well be next week. And as we go through phase 3 openings, as long as people do as they should, then cinemas may very well find themselves open with reduced capacity, maybe by this summer, and we'll see what happens. And then, of course, we'll all want to flock to the movies. Even I would love to just be able to sit in a theater right now and just enjoy a movie. Just like I'd love to be able to sit and watch a hockey game, baseball game, soccer, NASCAR, name it. I just to have that distraction, just to go, hey, sports are happening. It's great. So yeah, we'll see when cinemas open up globally and how that affects things like Marvel. Like Marvel has pushed back Black Widow, and they're pushing back the entire Phase 4. How far back can you push it, and how far can you take this, and what's going to happen? So I'm curious, and we'll see what happens with that. Harley Quinn. So the cartoon for Harley Quinn, I watched like half of the first episode, and I kind of had a reaction of, well, I know what this is, and it didn't really work for me. As entertaining as it was to hear Kaylee Cuoco swearing like a sailor, which we never heard in Big Bang Theory or 10 Rules to Dating My Daughter. Yeah, I don't know. It didn't really work for me. And yet they're announcing that they're basically telling us that, yeah, Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn are going to be a couple. And then this kind of ties into something else. So they had the Birds of Prey movie, which had limited success and some good reviews. And everybody talks about Harley and her costume, and I find it really, really strange. Superheroes wear skin-tight outfits and have for decades. Was hers more revealing than others? Yep. Is it different from Harley Quinn in the comics? A little bit, yeah. But Batman had nipples. Like, it just, I find it so weird that we have this discussion with women and that men at the same time. Like, yeah, Thor looks ugly, right? And yeah, I don't know. I do feel for Margot Robbie if she wasn't comfortable with what she was wearing. That I agree with. I agree with that, and I say that because I think it's important for a director to sit down with an actress and go, all right, so here's what we're thinking for costumes, or have the costume designer sit down and go, all right, here's what we're thinking, and then have some kind of back and forth with it, and all right, so this is where we're going to go. And really, in all honesty, that's important, that you have people that are comfortable, because I think that can help with the acting side of it, too. If you're not comfortable with what you're wearing, anyways, I know, suck it up, right? She makes a lot of money. I know that's what people are going to think, but still, I do find it weird we have this conversation when it comes to women in movies, but not men. Where, I mean, I watched Aquaman, and it was almost like Taylor Lautner for the amount of time he's running around shirtless. Finding excuses for him to be shirtless. But again, it's right. It's just different. The Harley Quinn character, she started out just as Joker's girlfriend, and I don't think when she was created that anybody had any idea how popular Harley Quinn would be. But Harley Quinn, what made her attractive to nerds was the fact that she was good looking, she was crazy, and she was with Joker. And so, right, and the good looking was a big part of it. And sadly, when you're putting a comic book movie out there, how the actress looks is gonna play a big role as to whether or not men are gonna want to go and see it. And I I agree that we should be past that, but I don't think we really necessarily are. And I don't think that's why Birds of Prey didn't do great at I don't think it's a, well, if she was wearing short shorts, it would have made an extra 50 million. I don't think so. I haven't seen Birds of Prey yet. I plan to once it's on the paid services that I use, once it's available on there. And I'll probably enjoy it. I enjoy most comic book movies. It's one of those things where you just turn your brain off a little bit. So yeah, I find that whole conversation weird that we get into what they're wearing and we don't talk about Batman's costume. Yeah, Batman can have nipples and it's not, we just, we look at it and think it's goofy, but that doesn't look comfy. And there have been plenty of actors, I'm sure, get thrown into these spandex outfits and they're like, this is not comfy at all. There was a video it was an article I was reading online about Tron and the Tron outfits and how for the first movie, the outfits they wore were pretty tight to the point where they were told they should probably cover up when they're going into the cafeteria at break time. So they were pretty tight outfits, and again, that seems more of a humorous thing. I don't know. And again, you could say, well, those weren't what we saw on screen because you had all the digital, coverings over top, and I don't know. Sometimes I think that we're just so uptight about that kind of thing. You can have 100 people get shot in a TV show. You can have murders in every episode, but a nipple shows up and everybody loses their minds and writes to their congressman. I say congressman because it's more of an American thing than Canadian. I don't see the outrage in Canada as much. Although, on Dynamite a while back, they started editing out the swearing on TSN up here in Canada, and I thought, wait, why? We're not offended by swearing, are we? Are we going backwards too? Because I remember Kids in the Hall, and that was when I was in high school, and Kids in the Hall, you could have some pretty raunchy language on there, including all of the negative terminology you can imagine directed towards gay males. And where it was okay and where that could be out there was that it didn't glorify any of that, and it certainly called some attention to it. I think I've talked about this on here before, but there was one sketch in particular that it drives me nuts trying to watch this now, because when they show Kids in the Hall, the F word that's used for gay males is out there, of course, and that was used all the time in the 80s. Nobody thought anything of it. It was just used all the time. Nobody cared. It was a standard terminology, and it didn't make any sense to me, because I'd hear it and I'd say, wait a minute, so who's gay? It's not, what? But I never understood it. I never got it. But there's a scene where Scott Thompson, who is gay in real life, is out riding his bike. And every time he was riding his bike, he'd be just enjoying himself and smiling. And then you would hear somebody off screen yell that word. So he'd look kind of confused, and he'd go back home, and he'd make himself look more manly. And he'd go out there more manly. And then they'd still yell it at him. And I think there was 4 different times before he gave up. And I thought, that's really funny. And this probably accurate for back in the late 80s. But now, what do you have? You have, in that scene when they re-show it, him on a bike, and then you hear a beep. And he goes home. It doesn't even make sense. It doesn't even make sense. And I always thought that it was clever more than it was offensive. Because, again, it's almost like the one episode where all the guys get together with him and they go, Scott, we got to talk. So, we heard you're straight. And they're all like, seriously, Scott, this is not right. Okay, we heard you're straight. And he was all like, oh, I've been trying to hide it from you. I like women kind of thing, right? And then at the end he goes, nah, I'm just kidding, I'm still gay. And they're like, oh, thank God. Oh, we were really worried you were straight. And again, that whole bit was great because it just turns the whole thing on its ear. Where normally back then it would have been, people think you might be gay, and oh no, and then the whole joke is, oh, you can't be that because that's terrible. And Kids in the Hall turned it on its ear. Great show. And by today's standards, it would be edited completely. It would be unwatchable. Another one that's sort of along that same line is Monty Python. You can watch almost any episode of Monty Python and say, that wouldn't be on the air now. That wouldn't be allowed. And yet it was in the 70s. So, and while I agree that there's certain things that we need to be careful about, some of the language you're using and some of the words that are being thrown out there, yet at times you have satire where things are out there and they are said, and it is done in a way to draw attention to something else. And Monty Python, it always felt like, was drawing attention to something else, and pointing out the ridiculousness of things. I know there were some sketches they did where they pointed out the ridiculousness of racism. Faulty Towers did it as well. And yet when you watch that now and you go, wow, the Major would not be a character on TV right now. There's no, and it is true. The Major, as he was written in the 70s, there's no way you could get that character on the TV anymore. You just couldn't. You absolutely couldn't do it. Now, Manuel's a whole other conversation we could have at another time. Manuel's a whole other conversation. That's a whole different thing. That I understand why some people would say that seems a little, but it just shows how much things have changed. And now here we are talking about how Harley Quinn, oh no. Anyways, the last topic I wanted to talk about, not going to go on any tangent here, I promise, although it's about Queen, so I might. Bohemian Rhapsody, and talks of a sequel. So apparently when the movie made a lot of money, there were some that said, hey, maybe they'll do a sequel. How do you do a sequel to Bohemian Rhapsody? It ends with Live Aid. They already messed around with the timeline so that it all wraps up into a nice, neat little bow. And Brian May basically said, there's some story to be had there, but it's not uplifting. So The Miracle and Innuendo, both albums of which I have, both albums are absolutely fantastic. If you want to hear the best album from Queen, to me it's Innuendo. And when he passed away, and then we found out that he'd had HIV/AIDS, and we, as a fan base, we realized this was written and done while he was sick, and while his condition was deteriorating. Some of the songs on Innuendo take on a whole new meaning. There's so much depth in there. And there's some fun songs on that album as well. So I thought what was amazing with this timeline, with The Miracle and Innuendo, which were written after Live Aid, when he knew he was sick, when he knew that he'd basically been given a death sentence, these albums have some really uplifting songs on them. These albums have some really good messages behind them. And I think that in and of itself is a story. So if they ever went with a sequel, you'd have to do it completely different. It would have to be a completely different movie altogether. And I don't know how you make it work. I don't. Because it can only end with his passing. And then do you go up to Adam Lambert being their singer and going on tour now? Or how do you, right? So I don't know how you do that. I don't really know how you do that. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Is there a way to make another movie about Queen? Like, you can make documentaries about Queen. I know I have a couple, because Queen's fantastic. But I don't know that you could do a movie just based on that part of their timeline that wouldn't feel like a downer. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below about how that could be done, especially if you're in the UK, and I know I have subscribers in the UK who may very well be big fans of Queen themselves. And let me know what you think. So, yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. And, yeah, I do tend to find myself watching things that may have some more offensive language in it, like I said. Because I sometimes think you can have a really good conversation coming out of that. Clerks 2 is a good example of that. Well, Clerks 1 was an excellent example of that as well. Letterkenny has some offensive language in it at points where, and I don't just mean swearing, I mean there's things that people say and you go, oh, we can't say that anymore. And so sometimes you can have a good conversation about that. And I'm talking about like when you're sitting, you're maybe having a beer with a friend and you're watching a movie, maybe you have a little, get together with friends and you all sit and watch a couple of movies. Sometimes the best conversations can be about these topics, and a movie can really sort of, in a fun way, cause a serious conversation to happen. So TV does that too, if it's done right. But it's easier to do cop procedurals and just ignore all that. Or just make trash. Because, the reality TV is just, a lot of it's just trashy. I tried watching Too Hot to Handle. I got like a third of the way through the first episode, and I was like, no. I tried watching Love is Blind. I got halfway through the first episode, and I was like, I don't care about any of these people. I don't care if any of them end up together at all. I really could not have cared less. So that's a problem. But let me know your thoughts. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support, and do hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happen upon this video. I will talk to you again soon.